It started like any other week, but there was this quiet tension in the air, the kind that prickles your skin without warning. You know the feeling. You walk through the hallways, hear whispers from the staff lounge, notice a glance exchanged between colleagues, and something in your chest tightens. That was me that Monday morning. I walked through the hallways of the school, clipboard in hand, greeting teachers and students as I always did, but my mind was elsewhere. Something felt off. None of the other assistant principals or vice principals had received their contracts for the upcoming school year. Normally, this was routine. Contracts arrived promptly, signed, returned, sealed like clockwork. But this year, nothing. Just silence. I tried to tell myself it was nothing. Maybe there was a delay at HR. Maybe they were busy with budgets, audits, or some other administrative nonsense. But a small voice in my head, the one that usually only whispered, was screaming, "Something is wrong." By Wednesday, the whispers in the staff lounge had turned into full-blown rumors. "Did you hear about the AP positions?" one teacher asked nervously. "I heard they're eliminating them all except at the high school." Another shook her head. "Someone told me they're going to replace them with..." What was it? Learning coordinators? Lower pay, but same responsibilities. I felt my stomach twist. My heart began to race. I tried to stay calm and professional, but inside, my mind was spinning. Wednesday morning arrived with the same fake sunshine you see in school hallways, fluorescent lights that made the beige walls even more lifeless. I had been dreading this meeting all week, but there was no avoiding it. Each of us, the APs, were scheduled to meet individually with one of the assistant superintendents. We all assumed it was about contracts. We were right, but not in the way we expected. The office was cold, sterile, and intimidating. The acting superintendent sat behind the desk, his expression unreadable. Next to him, the head of HR stared at me with what I can only describe as bureaucratic indifference. There was no warmth, no preamble, no empathy, just the weight of authority pressing down. "Your position is being eliminated," they said. Just like that. A statement. No apology. No explanation. My brain stuttered. I blinked, trying to process. I wanted to laugh, scream, and cry simultaneously, but instead I stayed quiet, absorbing the blow. Then came the options: go back to the classroom, work in the district office, or apply for a new position that essentially replaced the one I already held. I wanted to stand up, slam my fists on the desk, and yell, "Are you kidding me?" But I swallowed my frustration. Instead, I sat there, quietly simmering. I loved the classroom. I had always loved teaching, but I also loved leading, supporting staff, and making a difference in ways that went beyond lesson plans. I had poured my heart into this school, into my team, into creating a supportive environment for teachers and students alike. And now it was being ripped away not because of incompetence, but because of politics, favoritism, and image management. I couldn't stop thinking about my staff. They depended on me. They trusted me, and now they would have to navigate a completely new leadership team, one that didn't care about them or their needs. After the meeting, I walked the hallways alone, trying to make sense of it all. I ran through every possible scenario in my mind. Could I go back to the classroom full-time? Yes, I could. Would I be happy? Maybe, But would it feel like giving up? Like abandoning the team I had fought so hard to support? Desperate for clarity, I called Tony, one of the few, genuinely competent and honest assistant superintendents in the district. Tony had always been a mentor to me, someone I trusted. I asked him if he knew what had happened, if he could give me a hint, any insight. Tony shook his head. "I wish I could tell you," he said, "but I'm not allowed to discuss it, officially." But then, in hushed tones, he let slip pieces of the puzzle. One assistant superintendent had been demoted to principal at my school. My principal was stepping down for health reasons, and the superintendent had been released from his contract. And the new learning coordinator position, already filled by a counselor who just so happened to be friends with the new principal. Nepotism, plain and simple. I couldn't just sit there and take it. I had to speak my mind. I walked into the acting superintendent's office and let my voice carry authority, frustration, and resolve. "I think what you're doing is absolutely ridiculous," I said, my tone firm but controlled. "Laying off people, replacing them with less pay, and putting unqualified individuals in leadership positions? You're about to destroy an amazing school, a team of dedicated educators, and the trust of every single teacher here. The new principal? Lazy, mean, unfit. The TOA you've assigned as second in command? Completely useless. You are making a colossal mistake, and it will cost this school dearly." I let the words hang in the air. I made it clear that I would finish the year strong, that I would prepare resources for my staff to make their jobs easier, and that I would never, ever recommend this district to anyone. I left the office feeling a mixture of relief and anger. Relief that I had spoken my truth, anger at the injustice. But mostly, I felt the weight of responsibility toward my staff. By the end of the day, I had made a choice. I called an old friend, a principal at a esteemed charter school, who had been trying to recruit me for years. He had openings and promised I could design my own curriculum. The thought of returning to the classroom, focusing on teaching, and having the freedom to innovate thrilled me. Even better, my daughter wanted to come with me. She loved the school's labs, robotics room, and technology resources. For the first time that week, I felt excitement, a spark of joy amidst the chaos. I was leaving administration behind, at least for now. I was going back to teaching. And despite the injustice, despite the frustration and heartbreak, I knew one thing. I was ready for a new beginning. Shock, anger, frustration, they all existed in equal measure. But there was also liberation. I wasn't the vice principal anymore. I was a teacher again. I was free. And this time, I would do it on my own terms, without interference, without bureaucracy, without injustice. Friday was approaching, the final day for my staff with students. There was this bittersweet energy in the building, laughter, nervous chatter, and the faint smell of crayons, glue sticks, and freshly sharpened pencils. But beneath all that was the weight of change, looming like a storm cloud on the horizon. I could feel it in the teachers' voices, the subtle way they fidgeted in the staff lounge, the way their smiles didn't quite reach their eyes. I knew they were worried, and I knew I had to do something, even in a small way, to make the transition smoother. I had already decided I wouldn't let the new administration ruin their summer or their morale. I spent Sunday night pacing around my living room, trying to think of how I could give them one last gift, a little rebellion wrapped in kindness. It needed to be subtle, clever, and practical. And then it hit me. The district requires teachers to complete additional professional development hours throughout the year, mandatory, outside of normal staff development. Each teacher needs 24 hours, usually crammed over the school year or dragged out over the summer. Most teachers hate these hours. Hate them. They're long, tedious, and often irrelevant. What if I could give them all 24 hours? What if I could make the district count it for them without them lifting a finger? Monday morning, I got to work. I dug through years of my own training materials, classroom management strategies, lockdown procedures, math strategies, social studies lessons, reading comprehension techniques, environmental print activities. I had led countless workshops on these topics over the years, and I meticulously recorded all the hours I had ever spent discussing, demonstrating, or presenting each of them to staff. Every hour counted. Every session mattered. By rounding up where necessary, I could easily give each teacher exactly 24 hours worth of training. They wouldn't have to spend their summer or their personal time worrying about these sessions. As I prepared the certificates, I could almost picture their faces, the relief, the smiles, the quiet sense of freedom. It felt like giving them a gift they didn't even know they desperately needed. I made copies of attendance sheets, carefully filling in each teacher's name for each session, making sure every training looked legitimate. Dates, times, topics all perfect. It was foolproof. I even double-checked my work to make sure that if HR ever glanced at it, it would look official. As I worked, I thought back on the countless hours I had spent mentoring, coaching, and supporting my staff. Every late-night planning session, every strategy I had shared, every problem solved together, it all counted toward these certificates. And now I could turn that effort into a real, tangible benefit for them. I felt a small, private thrill knowing that while the district tried to control everything, I had found a loophole that allowed me to help my teachers quietly but powerfully. Part of me wanted to write a personal note to each teacher explaining the hours, the reasoning, and the thought behind it. But I knew some might not understand or might worry it would cause trouble. So I decided the certificates alone would speak volumes. The message was clear: I see you, I value you, and I want your summer to be yours. Even in this small rebellion, I felt a profound sense of connection to my staff. They had trusted me for years. They had allowed me into their classrooms, shared their frustrations, celebrated their successes. I owed them this. And maybe more than anything, it was my way of saying goodbye while leaving a positive mark behind. By the time Friday rolled around, everything was ready. I handed out the certificates along with the small goodbye gifts I had prepared: scratcher tickets, handwritten notes, little tokens of appreciation. Each note was personalized, something small but meaningful, reflecting memories, inside jokes, and shared struggles. At the bottom of every note, I wrote the same line: I'm giving you some scratcher tickets. My hope is that you are as lucky scratching them as I have been lucky to have worked with you. I watched as their faces lit up, some with surprise, some with laughter, some with tears. It was a simple act, but it felt monumental. A moment of joy, of relief, of human connection in a building full of uncertainty. As the day ended and the students were dismissed, I walked through the hallways one last time. The classrooms were quiet, the echoes of learning still hanging in the air. I felt a deep, bittersweet satisfaction. Even though I was leaving, even though the future was uncertain, I had done one thing right. I had made sure my teachers felt supported, valued, and seen. Yes, I was no longer an administrator. Yes, my position had been eliminated. But I had left a mark that was real, meaningful, and enduring. And that, more than any title or contract, was what truly mattered. By the time I left for the day, I felt a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. I had orchestrated a quiet rebellion, ensured my staff's freedom from the dreaded PD hours, and left behind a legacy of support and care. It was subtle. It was clever. And it was exactly the kind of mischief that reminded me why I had loved this job in the first place. The last week of my official tenure as an administrator began with a sense of eerie calm, and then quickly spiraled into absurdity. Technically, I still had a week left on the clock, but I had already decided I would not let the new administration dictate my remaining days. Vacation days were waiting in my bank, so I took them. Why waste my energy obeying orders from people who had no respect for me or my years of service? I spent the first day packing up my office, a task that should have been mundane but quickly became entertaining. Every drawer, every shelf, every personal item was a tiny weapon in my arsenal. As I handled my things, I couldn't help but smirk. If they thought my departure would be quiet, they were sorely mistaken. It all started with rudeness. The new principal, freshly demoted from assistant superintendent, along with her new teacher on assignment, Toa, decided that their first priority was asserting dominance over me. How? By treating me like a second-class citizen in the building I had nurtured for years. First, they ordered me to clean out my office immediately, despite the fact that I still had legitimate work to finish. The Toa practically demanded, "Get all your personal stuff out of here ASAP. I want my office now." My jaw tightened. This wasn't just unprofessional, it was petty. Next, the principal attempted to confiscate my personal chair, a gift from a friend, and my office supplies. When I caught her wheeling it away, I stopped her cold. "That chair is mine, not the district's." She muttered an indifferent "okay," but by the next morning, it had mysteriously disappeared from my line of sight. Third, the Toa handed me a list of tasks. And these weren't tasks I was responsible for, they were theirs. Packing staff packets, scheduling next year's PDs, submitting forms. Things that were literally in their job description. And somehow, I was expected to complete them. Every day, they treated me like hired help, snapping their fingers to get my attention and talking down to me as if I were invisible. At this point, I realized if they wanted chaos, they would get it. But on my terms. I became deliberate, methodical, and mischievous, a soldier of principle in a new war. First, I removed every single personal item from my office. Chairs, decorations, stress relievers, filing cabinets, even the fridge I had purchased for staff use. Every item had been mine, paid for with my own money, and every item now returned to its rightful owner, me. Then came the files. My cabinets were stacked with years of documents, my files, my predecessor's files, and hundreds of hours of work. I dismantled them, removed the folders, and stacked the papers into one giant, chaotic pile. No order, no structure. If the new admins thought they were inheriting my meticulous organization, they were in for a rude awakening. The fridge? I wheeled it out, loaded it into my truck, and even left their food on the table as a silent message. I follow orders, but only if they're reasonable. Next, I tackled digital files. Every personal file I had created lesson plans, training materials, and administrative documents was copied to a flash drive and then deleted from the work Google Drive, emails too. Anything I had authored personally was mine, and now it was gone from their access. Despite the chaos, I was still committed to my staff. I approved all supply requests, even personally delivering items from the district warehouse. I secured a second-hand kill for the art teacher after scouring Craigslist. I approved time-off requests submitted during my remaining week. I planned their PD schedule for the next year, and every Wednesday was listed as free time, or work in your classroom, a subtle act of rebellion that gave them freedom before they even realized it. I couldn't resist leaving small Easter eggs throughout the staff packets, Dilbert cartoons, Harry Potter quotes, Nickelback lyrics, Katy Perry, Starship, word searches, crosswords, teacher jokes, and even the admin Wi-Fi password, which, conveniently, was stronger than the staff network. Hidden between pages were markers of humor, culture, and community, my final gift to them before leaving. I also flew the LGBTQ+ flag in place of the state flag on Friday, leaving copies in each classroom for teachers to display. It was subtle, but a powerful statement. My school valued inclusivity, and no new administration could erase that legacy. Of course, they noticed. 3 confrontations in one day. When I took back my chair, I was told it was unprofessional. I calmly replied, yes, it was unprofessional to take my chair without asking. When the TOA discovered the fridge gone, she claimed it was community property. I replied, no, it's mine, and I was instructed to remove all personal property. When leaving the parking lot, the principal demanded I clean up my giant piles of paper. I informed her I was off the clock and legally, the cabinets had been purchased by me. I expected calls from HR asking me to restore order. If they wanted my expertise, fine, but at a consultant rate. $75 hour, minimum 12 hours. That's the price of chaos on my terms. By the end of the week, the office was technically functional, but the message was clear. The new administration had inherited a building that would require real work, not shortcuts. I had executed a perfect balance of mischief and care protecting my staff, asserting my boundaries, and leaving a mark that was entirely my own. By the time Part 4 begins, I was officially no longer an administrator. My last day on the books had passed, but technically, I still had a week left before my contract fully expired. My plan? Enjoy that freedom. Pack up, say my goodbyes, and leave the chaos behind. I envisioned a smooth exit. No drama, no grudges, just me, my daughter, and the open road. Little did I know, the new administration was not done with me yet. It started with a flurry of calls and emails from HR. It is very important that we speak to you as soon as possible, repeatedly. At first, I ignored them. My work email had already been deleted by the district, so they had resorted to my personal email and phone. I shrugged it off. My daughter and I had planned a road trip first. San Francisco for a few days of sightseeing and 2 Giants games, which, unfortunately, they lost. And then Disneyland for a few days of pure fun and childlike joy. If HR wanted to chase me down, they could wait. For an entire week, we explored the city, ate too much, laughed too much, and I allowed myself the rare joy of being fully present without work stress. Disneyland was especially magical seeing. The wonder in my daughter's eyes made every late night and stressful year worth it. When we returned, I finally checked voicemails and emails. The HR team was insistent. They wanted me in the office for urgent meetings. They needed items returned. They wanted information, files, and even personal notes I had compiled over years of service. I knew their requests were ridiculous, bordering on harassment. They listed everything: my chair, the one gift from a friend, my refrigerator and appliances, the community contacts board, my personally designed forms and worksheets, the two-way mirror, and the lockdown and fire drill supplies. They even wanted copies of my personal staff and student notes documents I had used to personalize gifts, track progress, and maintain professional relationships. I calmly told them no, firmly, politely, but without compromise. The chair, a gift, mine to keep. The fridge and appliances, purchased with my money, mine to take. The contact board, built over years of personal effort and community relationship building. Forms, worksheets, notes, my intellectual property created personally on my own time. Anything officially belonging to the school, that remained untouched and available. I even told them that if they tried to force me, I was prepared to defend myself legally. I offered my lawyer's contact information someone I trusted implicitly from years past and made it clear I was serious. Once that was settled, I wished them a good school year. No lingering anger, no extra commentary, just calm, unshakable confidence that I had done the right thing. My work was mine to protect, my integrity intact, and my staff had already received my gifts and support. What followed wasn't just a legal victory or administrative stand, it was a personal triumph. I had left behind an office, a school, and a position I had dedicated years to, but I had done it on my terms. I had protected my staff, preserved my work, and reclaimed my freedom. Driving home that day, with my daughter by my side, I reflected on everything. This wasn't just about revenge, or petty office politics, or frustrated years of service. It was about reclaiming joy, about returning to teaching because I genuinely loved it, about walking away from toxicity with dignity intact. Next year, I would be a 6th grade teacher at a STEAM charter school, a place I had wanted to work for years. I could craft my own curriculum, immerse myself in teaching, and rebuild my love for the profession without interference from bureaucratic nonsense. My daughter would join me as a 5th grader, excited about the robotics lab, science experiments, and technology-rich environment. Together, we would step into a new chapter. Before leaving, I left behind a small parting gift to every staff member, personalized notes and scratcher tickets. I'm giving you some scratcher tickets I wrote. My hope is that you are as lucky scratching them as I have been, lucky to have worked with you. It was my way of saying thank you, goodbye, and good luck all in one. By the end of it all, I had navigated politics, betrayal, and disrespect with strategy, grace, and a little mischief. I left the administrator world not just unscathed, but triumphant. The new admins would have to work hard, but I walked away with peace of mind, my personal property, and my dignity intact. More importantly, I had reclaimed my life, my career, and my joy in teaching. As the sun set on my former office and school, I realized one truth. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't anger, it's living well, protecting what's yours, and walking away with your head held high. And in that, I had succeeded beyond measure.